And joining us now is former FEMA coordinator Mark Nouveau. Mark, this hurricane is being called a monster and still has the potential to get stronger. What's happening on the ground right now between different levels of government to prepare for this?
A tremendous amount of hundreds of meetings and millions of dollars. What they're doing is once the president actually established a disaster emergency declaration, a federal coordinating officer was established for each state. They're coordinating with the governor's emergency manager at the state level, and they're talking to the local folks and to try to determine what they may need. They're taking a look at the plans that exist and what needs to be done to actually resource those plans. They've moved a number of resources into federal air bases and military bases. It's cots, water, meals, etc. All of that is as close as they can get to the impact area without making it in a dangerous position to get to. So there's a lot of coordination taking place between the 3-4 levels of government. Now the fourth one, the level, is the non-governmental agencies, and they're tremendous. It's the Salvation Army, the Red Cross, etc. Red Cross is the one that's operating shelters, for instance. So this is a neighbor helping neighbor with the government trying to coordinate. That's really the crux of this system.
Mark, when you see how strong this hurricane is and the kind of catastrophic damage it could potentially cause, what's going through your mind as a former FEMA coordinator?
Well, you want to make sure that you've got as many resources. You recognize that this is going to be a big one. The challenge to these storms is not necessarily the size. As we saw in Hurricane Sandy, it was not a hurricane, it was a tropical storm. And what came from that was the rise in the base water level. So you could protect from the storm outside by sandbagging buildings, etc., but the water rose inside those buildings from underneath, and in a lot of cases downtown Manhattan, the infrastructure of those buildings, the high-rise, was compromised. It wasn't a big storm, but it's the base water that becomes a problem. So they're trying to consider that as well as the storm itself. On top of that, the challenge becomes, what if this storm moves? It's on a certain track. We plan for that track, but it's Mother Nature. What if it shifts one way, left or right?
Yeah, Mark, you just mentioned Hurricane Sandy and sandbagging. We all know what happened with Hurricane Harvey in Houston and then Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. What are some of the biggest lessons learned that could help in this situation with Hurricane Florence?
Yeah, I think we're apples and oranges in a sense, because Puerto Rico was an island unto itself. It did not have preparation. There was a tremendous amount of poverty there. It came at the end of 2 major hurricanes. We're not facing that right now. We've got the ability to get resources into those states by merely driving, which makes a big difference. The power grid is probably updated. It isn't the same situation as it was in Puerto Rico, so we know there are circumstances that make this a little bit different. Now, FEMA has learned also. What you're seeing today in their ops report is they're focusing on what they call lifelines. So they've tried to make sure that they take a look at those areas that are absolutely essential to response, and that's life-saving, that's communications, that's infrastructure. So they recognize there was some need to make some change.
Mark, we appreciate you taking the time. We can hope for the best, but always be prepared for the worst. Thank you.
Well said.
All right, that's an ongoing story.